I will ask for a few things if possible. If possible, you can have your videos on. I know it's. I'm fully aware and cognizant of the fact that right now with these Zoom calls that we're trying to do, these Zoom lessons, it's very difficult because at the end of the day, there's lots of other things one can be looking at online. There's lots of other things you can be buying on Amazon or what have you. There's quizzes, there's all different trivia contests and things like that. But I just do generally feel with, especially this material. I mean, look, the Gemara says in Chagiga, in Tractate Chagiga, one should really not teach these materials unless it's one-on-one with the certain people. Now, obviously, we're not going to be going into like the greatest depths. It's going to be a journey we're all going on together. However, I'm very cognizant of the fact that if we're not listening properly or we're focusing on other things and we're not able to actually give it our full attention, there's every danger that someone can get the wrong idea, someone can get the wrong end of the stick. And it's a big problem. So I would love it if we could have the videos on. I enjoy very much seeing your faces and seeing that you're with us. And again, there's no pressure. No one should feel, oh my gosh, I can't turn my video off to go and get a cup of tea. You can do what you want. It's cool. All is good on this class. But I just think that we're dealing with very complicated in some ways material. That I think is as I'm about to say in my intro, it's really vital. It's really important to understand, and we're going to be reading together. And I may well call you any minute saying, "Can you read?" Which I know I do sometimes. So you're going to have to be present. So I know Dave Webb is now just quickly putting his phone into airplane mode as we speak. And I know you are. I know you are. I know you're putting your phone on airplane mode. I've muted you, so I don't even know what you were saying. Okay, here we go, guys. Let's just start the class, just getting into the zone a little bit. It's been waking up. Some of us are waking up. Let's just wake ourselves up in our neshamas. So if you just take just a few minutes now, just sit with your eyes closed. You can sit with your back straight, or if you're lying on the floor, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, just we're going to take just like literally 1 minute just to get ourselves a bit more focused. So just with your back straight against the chair, take a big deep breath into your nose. And then breathe out again. If you can, have none of your, yeah, that's it. Beautiful for you. I was going to say if your limbs are crossed, but it's okay. I know Matt's sitting in a lotus position, which is okay. But try not to, it's fine. Just try not to have your limbs crossed. Okay, again, so a big deep breath into your nose. Just calming ourselves down. We live our lives almost like a supercomputer, just the processor is so fast. And we've just come out of a Shabbos, Sunday, Yom Rishon, first day of the week. It's time to get going, it's time to move, it's time to build, time to engage. But let's not run too fast away from the Shabbos experience. As I've said to a few of you in different classes before, the Shabbos is actually the middle of the week. Shabbos is not the end of the week, it's the middle of the week. We build up from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday into Shabbos, and then we kind of come down on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday from Shabbos. Shabbos is the pinnacle. We go up, then we go down. It's the middle. So we're going to come out of the Shabbos experience resting and calm, ready to engage. So let's just breathing in through your nose. Feel the colder air coming in. Hold for a few seconds, and then breathing out again. Just feeling the warmer air, breathing out as air is warmer. Once again, breathing in. Cool air coming in. Hold just for a few seconds and then breathe out again. Noticing the air is warmer. Noticing your feet against the floor, your body against the floor or the chair, wherever you are. Beautiful. You say every morning the prayer, Modeh ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam. It's the first thing we say when we wake up in the morning. Modeh ani lefanecha, Modeh ani. I'm a thanker. I'm thanking. I'm someone who's thanking in front of you, Hashem. Melech chai v'kayam, the king there, the king who is truly alive. Shechazalta bi nishmasi, returned my soul into me. Bechemla, with loving kindness, with compassion. Rabba emunasecha, great is your faith in me, that you gave me back my soul for another day. You've given me another opportunity. So let's join together now as we start the class. Would you like to wake up? Open your eyes. Okay, so this is a journey we're all about to start together, going through the book Inner Space by Aryeh Kaplan. Just a few words of intro. Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan stands apart from really, he stands head and shoulders above really all other sort of Jewish authors, contemporary authors from the past, say, 40 years. He actually lived a very short life. He was born in 1934, died in 1983. He was very young when he passed away. But he was supremely prolific in his lifetime. He wrote just a whole host of books, really introducing to the Jewish world the depth, the wisdom of Judaism, of Hasidut, of Kabbalah, of meditation. And it's actually just boggling the amount that he wrote in an extremely short amount of time that he was on this world. He actually was a physics, he was actually also a physics professor. He was someone who was involved with in the scientific world and also in the Jewish world. He didn't grow up religious. He only came later on in his life to religion. So it's actually really fascinating to see how he's really speaking to every single one of us in clear, lucid language. Now, the reason why are we doing this? What's the reason why I've decided to kind of go through this book together? I think the reason is because I think, as we try now to deepen our meditation and deepen our experience of spirituality, we are limited. We find ourselves completely limited by vocabulary. When I tell you that today, for example, when I say to you that we're in the Omer right now, we're kind of the Omer between Pesach and Shavuos, and when I tell you today is Tiferes Shebetiferes, right? Does that mean anything to anybody here? Apart from maybe David Webb, who I was learning with earlier this morning. We're learning some stuff together. So David might have a bit more of an understanding, but anyone else out there, if I say to you, right, today is Tiferes Shebetiferes, Adam Aluf, don't do anything for you?
It's to do with the sorry.
Right. So yeah. So Emily's right in that. Yeah, it's to do with the Sephiros. But does that? If I say to you, well, Emily, today is Tiferes Shebetiferes. So would you understand what the energy of today, what you're meant to be doing today?
No, but each day has like a different vibe. Each day has a different vibe.
Exactly, right. Every day has its vibe. Every day has its energy. But the question is, what is the specific energy of Tiferes Shebetiferes? Most of us, it's not simple to understand what that is. When we talk about things like tzimtzum, we talk about things like the levels of the neshama, but there's nefesh, there's ruach, there's neshama, there's chayz, the chida. We talk about the understanding of how the world came into being. We're really, really limited because we don't understand. We have a limit in our vocabulary. We have a limit in our ability to understand what's truly happening. And therefore, that's why I want to go in this book, because I think if we can get some terms clear as we can, then I think it will actually really ameliorate and better our meditation experience as we go forward. I want to have deeper meditations with you, and I think if we can understand things better, it would help. I also think just it's vital to, those of you who've chosen to come to a class like this on Sunday morning, it means that you are interested in how the world came to being, how the world works, the fundamental questions about how there can be an infinite God, an infinite creator, and yet at the same time, how can there be a finite world? How is that possible to have a finite world with an infinite creator? How did the world come to be? These are some of the questions you may or may not have asked yourself at some point in your life, but these are really important things, and also not just that, but what's my role? What's the purpose what's our purpose in this life? How does free will come into this? What's the purpose of free will? So these are really important questions that I think that when we can get a foundation in them, then we can move on in a deeper, everyday experience. It changes your everyday life. It means that when you're davening, when you're praying in the morning or in the afternoon or the evening, or you're praying in your own words, you have a better understanding of what's happening in your soul level. You have understanding when the different festivals come along, when you have, the Pesachs and the Shavuots and the Sukkos of this world, you'll be able to put it into the context of its, higher spiritual realm. It's when I reflect on my own personal journey, on my own journey that I had becoming more involved in this kind of thing, one of the things that knocked me the most, that really got me so excited, is when I started developing and seeing the patterns, seeing how the patterns come together, how everything starts to fit into one wonderful tapestry. We kind of walk through our life, we see little bits here and there. When we live our regular lives as Jews from wherever around the world, South Africa, Australia, England, France, you live your life and you have a Pesach, and you have a Shavuot, and maybe you have a Shabbat, and then you have a Shake a Lulav, and here a shofar, and eat a matzah. But there's no underlying sort of story that brings it all together, that shows that everything's working and what journey, what direction it's taking us in. And that's why I think when we can get a better understanding in this world, it will help us. So that's basically why I've decided to go through Innerspace. I thought it would be useful also just to have a text for us to springboard, so that we can also refer back to, we can ask questions on. Obviously, I want questions. The best thing to do is, I want to make it as interactive as possible. I think, that's my style. So just obviously, if you think it's going to be if you think the question is going to take us on a tangent, then I'd say just hold out. But if you think it's relevant to the place, then definitely just unmute yourself and let's go for it. I think it's good to have a discussion. My first question is, can everyone hear me okay? For the first time, I've got this microphone. I've got like a headphones and microphone because a little bit of background noise here outside this door. I have a bomb-proof shelter door here, but there is still a lot of noise coming through from various children. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so let's get the show on the road. Innerspace is what he calls, Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan calls an introduction to Kabbalah, meditation, and prophecy. Okay, I'm not sure if we'll be going into the level of prophecy per se, but I definitely see it as an introduction to Kabbalah. It's an introduction to such a rich and vital part of our existence. And by the way, who can tell me? It's really bothering me that I haven't got my, what do you call it? Oh, here we go. That's better. Oh, I can unmute you all easily now. Who can tell me why this time of year, Dafka, this time of year is such a great time for us to be learning this kind of stuff? Why? Maybe not David Webb, but hold on David for a second. But who else can tell me why is this such a great time for us to be learning this stuff? Who can tell me?
The sun's shining.
The sun's shining. Okay, other than the fact that the sun is shining. Anyone else?
Are you reading Jack and the Beanstalk?
So Omer?
Okay. I think some people don't.
Because we're in isolation. We're looking into ourselves.
Because we're in isolation. Yeah, that's one idea. Anyone else? More specific to the time that we're in right now.
So Omer?
Yes. What does that mean, though?
It has a meaning. It's specific rules and laws applicable to this time.
Yeah. Okay. Specific rules and laws applicable time. But why is that? That's a good answer. It's a true answer. But why does that relate to why now would be a great time to start developing this connection with
I'm not.
Time to reflect.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Reflecting time. Excellent. Yeah. Leon. Yeah. Go on.
Sorry, I'm not on camera because I'm wearing a dressing gown.
Oh, it's a shame.
I just think because, I think the gentleman before me just answered at a time to reflect, but also it's a reflection with the Omer. It's a different reflection every day. And I think we can compare that with the times that we're living in. So it's very relevant. It's very connected. Each day is very connected in what we're living in at the moment with this virus and with the world, consciousness, with that consciousness in the world, which I think is quite related, that we're going through the Omer at the same time. That's the best way I can say it.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I think that's very true. I think now is an amazing time where we are a lot of people are reflecting. They're coming to themselves and asking questions about why this is happening, what we can do, how we can They understand God's word. I just spoke to a guy. I've spoken to this guy for literally a year. Just spoke to him just now before this call, and like just straight in, he goes, "Rabbi, right, I've got a question for you, a rabbinical question, and you're never not really sure what that's going to be. It could be, I put my meaty knife in the, in my milkshake and stirred it around, and what do I do now?" That's often what a rabbinical question might be. But he actually, what do you make, Rabbi, of the coronavirus crisis? What's your take on it? I want to hear the rabbi's take on what's going on. So that's all true. We've got a time and opportunity to really kind of, I think, look deeply at our lives and see what's happening. But I'm saying specifically this time is very interesting. Every week of the Omer relates to one of the 7 Sfirot. And we're going to talk about this. We go along the Spheros, what they are. We'll get there very soon. But it relates to a different one of the Spheros. And in a 2.5 weeks, roughly, we will hit a day during the Omer, and that day is called Lag BaOmer. It's the 33rd day of the Omer is Lag BaOmer. And Lag BaOmer is the day, the Yortzeit, or the Hilula, if you're Sephardic, of none other than Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Shimon Bar Yochai is relevant to all this simply because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was the teacher of what was later to be written down as the Zohar. And the Zohar became the fundamental text for sort of Kabbalistic teachings especially in the time of the Arizal in the 1500s. So the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Lag BaOmer, is a time where he took the secrets of the Kabbalistic teachings and he taught it to the world before he died. And that's why Lag BaOmer is such a huge day. People get very excited about barbecues and bonfires, yes, but actually in a deeper way, it's the time that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai actually started teaching really the Kabbalah to the world. And hence we're in a really kind of interesting time where I guess everyone is waking up to these ideas. Let's get kicking off. Let's go. Okay, so I've given you page 1, which says the special, yeah, Luffy.
So you said that, I didn't know that every week of the Omer relates to a 7 Sphira.
Yeah.
Isn't there 10?
Okay, beautiful. Already great questions. Yes, there are 10. What we're going to see very soon, I'll give you a very short answer. I'll give you a short answer and I'll give you a long answer. The short answer is, the long answer has to come when we start working out what the spheres actually are. But the short answer is that they are divided into 3 and 7, those 10. They're called the 3 higher, we call moichin, the mind, and the 7 lower are the midos, which is more like the emotions, character traits. So they divide to 7 and 3, and we only really focus on those 7 during the Omer. But that's the short answer.
Is there another time when you do the 3, or is
sorry, what?
Is there a higher time when you would do the 3?
No, we'll discuss what that is. We'll get there. Okay, but very good question. Excellent. Okay, anyone else got a question before we get going? No? Okay. So let's get going. I think this is a good way for us to start speaking. It's how basically Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan begins talking about the topics. In other words, in his introduction, if anyone's got the book, it's on page 7 of the book. But in the beginning of the book, in the introduction, he goes and just talks about the history. I don't want to go into that too much. I think in your own time, learn about the history of like the Kabbalistic tradition, where it came from, how it's transmitted. You can do that, like I said, in your own time. We want to get into more of the details. So page 7, where it says the spiritual dimension, and I'm going to ask a volunteer, and that volunteer is going to have to be, I think, someone called Greg Slotsky. He's the first time joining us, and I think it's only right that as his maiden speech, he should actually be reading. I would ask Matt Howie, but it doesn't look like he's going to be reading much right now. We love you, Matt. Okay, Greg, I'm going to unmute you, and let's read for us. Everyone should have the sheet in front of them. Everyone's got it?
Is it the spiritual dimension?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Got it.
Go for it. Yeah.
Spiritual dimension. So, one of the most important foundations of our faith is the belief that God is an absolute unity in every possible respect. We see God as a simple unity, absolutely simple and absolutely one. There is no element of form, structure, or plurality in him whatsoever.
Okay, so as we know, when we talk about Hashem being one, and this is obviously something which I'm guessing if you're coming to this class, I don't have to start going through this. We don't see God as a man. God is not a person. God doesn't have eyes and ears and nose. God isn't a long beard with a stick, right? God, Hashem, is complete unity, complete oneness. There are no parts to Hashem, right? He is completely perfect and completely one in every sense. There's no form, there's no structure, it doesn't have a body, whatsoever. And sometimes it's very hard for us to take. It can take literally years and years and years and years for us to sort of erase the image of God that we got when we were kids. When you're a little boy or girl in school, and primary or cheder, wherever you went to King David, or if you went to, you know, live in St. Anne's cheder, right? Then they would teach us a song went, Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is chilling everywhere, up, up, down. And you kind of imagine this like man that's everywhere. Like, man is up, there's a man that's down, there's left, there's right, and there's God up there, and you've got to. And by the way, as I've said to many people in the past, the big problem we do have is that most of us go to shul on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And for many people, that's the only time they go to shul. And when you go to shul on Yom Kippur, you hear about God's hand writing in the book, and you just imagine God as a man, as a king. So we've got to raise that. Hashem is completely perfect and one, and there's no form or body whatsoever. Carry on, Greg. Doing great.
Sure. But this brings up a tricky question. How does God, who's absolutely simple, interact with the different aspects or parts of his creation? How does the one interact with the many?
Pause there.
Sure.
Okay, how does the one interact with the many? Okay, if you have like one Hashem, and you have, you know, the many, there's the worlds, there's the universe, the planets, right? How does one interact with many? But of course, he's about to say this himself. There's a more fundamental question before you even say this. This even has a question. Adam, is your hand up now, or did you put it there? I just don't know if you got.
That was about 10 minutes ago when I.
Okay, fine. So there's another question before we even get there. Before we start saying about how does God interact with many, there's a question that presupposes that. This is a much more fundamental and difficult question. And that question is, carry on, Greg. Carry on. The question is much more fundamental. What is it?
While we are pondering this question, however, and before we attempt to answer it, we are led to an even more perplexing one. According to...
Next page, page 8 of the book. Yeah.
Simple essence is so powerful that it must be hidden if creation is to exist at all. If, on the other hand, God would withdraw himself completely, creation would utterly cease to exist. We thus have a paradoxical situation where the very existence of anything but God himself becomes extremely tenuous. The question, therefore, is no longer how can the one interact with the many, but how can a many exist?
Excellent readings. Greg, I want to say you can definitely come back to another class with your reading. I've been waiting for a reader like you for a long time. But I'm noticing just how many South Africans I've got in this group. We've got Raf, Greg, Gav, and Matt. I should just turn this into like a Joburg class. So we should call it Joburg Learning Center. Yeah, it's like the old days, the JLE used to be known as the Johannesburg Learning Center. No joke, there's so many Sappers. Okay, so look at this. I'm sure you had this question as well. David, yes, go for it, David. Unmute yourself and speak. You have to unmute yourself.
I can unmute myself. It's kind of like electricity, right? So like, it's almost like if the electricity, it's one, right? But it limits itself to our individual devices. And if we touch electricity, we can get a shock, but it transforms so we can use it as an iPad or a TV, or we can heat up water in a kettle or a Shabbat oven. It limits itself so that, or we limit the electricity so we can use it in a way which is accessible to us.
Okay, that's very good. I will come back to that, and I want to speak to you about that. I want to stay in the question. You kind of went for an answer. The problem with your answer is that you are already in a paradigm where there's people using things like a person and a kettle plugging into the wall. Now, this question is far more fundamental than that. This question is really saying, how can there be a kettle? How can there be a David Webb? How can there be any separate sort of entity if God is completely one and there is nothing but Hashem? There's nothing but God. So how can there be anything other than Hashem?
Because he limits
it. We're going to start delving into the answer. And by the way, learning these books is going to be a way for us to appreciate, understand how Hashem does it. But step by step, we'll have to get that together. But it's a question. I don't know if anyone has ever had that question before. Has anyone ever asked himself that question? If you tell me God is one and God is perfect and there's no parts to God and there's just all there is God, as we say, Ein oid milvadoi. The words Ein oid milvadoi means there is nothing but God. There is nothing but God. Well, I don't know about you, but what does that mean for me? Is that me, myself, you, the world we live in, the universe we're in? How does that all relate? So don't come to the answers yet. I want us all to stay in the question. You've got to link. You've got to be in. I tell you, I recently bumped a couple of years ago. I met my Rosh Yeshiva, the head of my yeshiva that I went to when I went to Israel, and he was speaking. It reminded me of something he said once, which was when we're learning Gemara. You're learning through these texts, and we're so used to always having the answer. You've got to have the answer, boom, quickly. You've got to have the answer straight away. We're so used to giving the answers, but actually, sometimes it's good to stay in the question, to really think it through, and let the question absorb into yourself, and ask yourself that question. How, as Rabbi Kaplan says here, the question isn't how can the one interact with the many, but how can a many exist? How can there be anything other than Hashem? How can you exist? How can I exist? David gave the example of electricity, but let's just say that electricity is so incredibly powerful. The light is so blinding. The light is it's more powerful than anything you can ever imagine. All there is light. How can there anything else exist within that light? Okay, so this is that's what part of the Kabbalah is coming to teach us. Okay, so I was going to say something, or should we just? It was a noise. But okay, Leon is doing his Freddy Krueger impression. Right? Really.
I think it's part of the endlessness, isn't it? Like we're in an endless realm, so everything that God's doing in his total way is already we're already individually within the realm of that endlessness anyway,
right?
And due to that, everything is okay.
Yeah, no. Listen, this could be true. This could be right. We're actually asking more in a weird way. If I would say this is more like the physics. This is more like the Jewish physics of what's going on. This is more the kind of how, not necessarily what or why, but how. How practically does it happen? How does it happen that you've got like the entity of Hashem, all powerful, all completely, all there is Hashem, and yet there's you, there's me, there's a pet. You've got your pet goldfish. You got the golf course around the course. How does that work? So let's read on a bit. I'm now going to ask, if it's possible, I hope she'll mind, but I'm going to ask Sophie Samuels if you're okay with that. Look at that. She's not happy about it, but it's okay. Sophie, read the next paragraph. The Kabbalists, go. Hey, you're muted. Okay,
sorry, I don't have the text to hand.
Oh no, why not? Because you're just listening.
I'm a terrible student.
No, you're terrible students. Like, we'll okay.
Sorry.
No worries. Okay, so Gav Rubin, who looks like he does have the text to hand. So no worries, Sophie. It's okay. It's all good. Go for it, Gav. Go. You're in. Read us the next paragraph. Go.
Okay. The Kabbalists answer this question and the previous one by explaining that God created a spiritual dimension. This dimension is made up of every basic concept needed to create and sustain the universe. It is essentially through the spiritual domain that God interacts with the universe. It thus forms the bridge between God and creation and acts as step-down mechanisms which prevent creation from being overwhelmed by God's essence while still being infused with it.
Excellent. Right, so straight away, Rabbi Kaplan uses a wonderful metaphor. The metaphor is step-down mechanism. And you may have heard me say this a few times in my classes that I've been teaching. We talk about a step-down mechanism, right? You have complete infinity and you have finitude. You have a world of finitude. There is a step-down mechanism which basically takes that complete light, that light. We're going to later on, we're going to define as the Or Ein Sof, and it steps down that light. It brings it down and dims the light, so that there can even be a realm where anything other than Hashem can at least appear to exist. So already from the beginning, we understand that there is a process going on constantly. In the spiritual realms, there's a constant. That process isn't something that happened once at the beginning when God created the world, even though obviously Hashem created via this thing called Tzimtzum, which is the step-down mechanism. But this is a process which is continual. Every nanosecond, this process is happening at all times. There is this constant process of Tzimtzum happening, whereby Hashem, in his complete infinitude, right, is allowing a finite world to happen through the spiritual dimension. And by the way, when we talk about spheros, which we're going to be dealing with very soon, the spheros are essentially that technology, that mainframe. Again, I'm not a computer scientist. I don't know if you or anyone else is here, but the technology which allows the world to run, that intel inside, whatever you want to call it, I don't know the proper word, but the technology which allows that world to run, a finite world to at least appear finite, that is called the spheros, the 10 spheros that Adam mentioned before. We're going to have to understand it. This is what I'm desperate. We're going to get there. It's so exciting. Carry on. You're doing great, Gav. According to many Kabbalists.
According to many Kabbalists, it is this spiritual dimension that makes it possible for us to speak about God's multifaceted relationship to the universe without violating the basic principle of his unity and his simplicity. For, according to the Kabbalah, any action or state of being that we might ascribe to God refers to something that God created in order to interact with the universe, not to God himself. Thus, without some knowledge of how this dimension is structured, i.e. knowledge of theoretical Kabbalah, a person cannot really know how God interacts with us. In addition, as we shall see, knowledge of the spiritual dimension provides us with a key to the entire prophetic tradition, beginning with the Bible itself and culminating in the most abstract Kabbalistic ideas.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why we are going to be learning and trying to go through this book together. For that exact reason. It's exact reason. Exactly like he says here, without some knowledge of how this dimension is structured, right, which is theoretical Kabbalah, a person cannot really know how God interacts with us, right, and how this structure, you know, the steps down, and then also, interesting enough, the steps up. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zatzal, was he used to, and it runs through all of Chabad, back from the first Lubavitcher Rebbe back, of Shlomo Zalman of Liadi, the Balatanya, is talking about this idea that it's not necessarily just the down flow and the step down, but it's also the up, the way that we actually, by doing what we do in this world, by doing the tikkunim, by doing the fixing, when we fix ourselves, we fix the world, we can therefore go up and almost affect, so to speak, the higher realm as well. So it's a step down mechanism, and it's also a step up mechanism, and that as well. But this is life. This is the deepest understanding of what life is. So let's go a bit more. Let's finish off last paragraph. Gav, you're doing great. Does everyone agree? Nod your head if you think Gav should continue. Yeah, I think so too. Adam, what do you reckon, Luffy? Yeah, I think he's great. Leon, you don't mind if he continues, do you?
I didn't see everyone nod. I don't know.
No, Leon is not sure. But he's
thanks, Matt.
No, he loves it. Okay,
cool.
Go for it. Yeah.
I'm 100% sure. Please continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, Gav, go carry on. You think if we were to imagine
the spiritual domain, therefore, it could be described as an infinitely huge spiritual computer. This computer is programmed to fulfill God's one ultimate purpose of bestowing good upon his creation. The main difference between the spiritual domain and a computer is that the components of the former consist of intelligent, sensitive spiritual beings. Since the main point of the theoretical Kabbalah is to resolve the paradox of God's interaction with creation, it deals almost exclusively with the structure and dynamics of this domain.
Okay, so essentially when I was talking about technology, again, I've read this before, so that's why I'm reflecting on these kind of ideas. But yes, right, if you can imagine, right, the whole purpose of Hashem creating the world, right, is to bestow the good upon a creation that he has created. What's the tech? What's the hardware? Literally, how does it happen? That is what we're going to be learning as we go through this together. We're going to be learning about the Shama, we're going to be learning about the Alamus, we're going to learn about the universes. And let's jump in a little bit. Let's get something going here, because I know we kind of be very ready. We've been working towards it. Okay, so let's go now into the next piece. In the book on pages 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, he talks a bit about some of the things we've actually discussed in previous Super Soul Sundays about Hashem bestowing his good and the idea of Hashem wanting to give good. Okay, so let's go in now to page 15. It says the universes. Everyone got in front of the universes?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go from there. It says the universes. and we're going to start talking about that. If it's okay with everyone, I hope no one minds, but I'm going to actually ask Adam and Luf. Oh, yeah, you're there, Luf, aren't you? You're there.
Cut off there. I think you can see
right,
that.
Luf. So you should be able to read where it says the universes. Does anyone see that?
Yeah. We have seen that man is the culmination of creation, the purpose for which everything was brought into existence. In creating the universe, God concealed his light so that the creation could exist as an independent entity. This in turn was in order to bestow his goodness upon man through his resembling his creator. Thus the creation took place as a primary concealment of the divine presence in order to create an environment for man.
Okay, so pause there a second. So we are now we're going to mention now the idea of Tzimtzum. We're going to get into Tzimtzum just so you understand. Just I don't worry. There's no bluegrass guitar this week, guys, as far as I know. Although it could get a bit kind of hairy. You never know with these things. But okay, so we're going to be talking about something here called Tzimtzum. Those of you who've been to my class before, I have mentioned it. It's not the first time, so it shouldn't be too weird. But so the pen thing is not working so great. Tzimtzum. Okay, quite literally, Tzimtzum, right, is the process of concealment. Okay, Litzamtzem, even in modern Hebrew, you would say Litzamtzem means to kind of to conceal, or even more, just to condense, essentially, to condense down something which is all-encompassing into something which is practical and something which you can use, is the process of Tzimtzum. Okay, so when we kind of
Dov,
sorry, yeah,
or putting a veil over a lamp. You know,
yeah,
like,
there is that same idea. Beautiful, like putting a veil, different veils. The more veils you put, right, the less light you're going to have. That's very nice. I like that very much. Yeah. So it's almost as if the way I kind of sometimes do it is like this: is that you've got sort of like, again, we're always limited because when we go to the very when we go to the highest level of Hashem, I'm just going to go down here. I'm talking about Hashem. I'm just going to write here, draw. Okay. When we talk about the essence of God, the essence of Hashem is what we call the Ein Sof. Okay. I'm going to do, one second. Hold on. This is really frustrating.
The queue is there behind that blonde lady. Yeah.
Okay. Leon, you're going to have to mute yourself after you.
Oh, sorry.
Love you, mate. Love you, mate.
I'm just getting a coffee. Sorry, mate.
No, we love you. 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 Okay, fine. So when we talk about essentially the essence, the essence of what Hashem is, we call that the Ein. That's gone a little bit. The Ein Sof. Ein Sof. Anybody know what that actually translates as? Ein Sof.
Not like the
go on, Matt. Yeah, go on.
I've heard it somewhere. Isn't it about like the infinite
without ending?
Yeah, is it the endless light?
Yeah. So Ein. Yeah, there is Ein. There is no soft end. No end. So there is no end and there is no beginning. Right. Now we are taught very clearly in all the Kabbalistic texts that regarding the Ein Sof, regarding the ultimate essence of Hashem, we can't give any description. We can't talk about it. We can't say anything about it because, quite literally, we do not know really anything at all. And by the way, this is a very powerful thing that a lot of people struggle with. And I've said this many times. You'll hear it from me, which is that the goal of all knowledge isn't like what you were taught when you went to I can't remember what school Luffy went to. Devonshire High. What was it called? I can't remember the school. Devonport High, right? Which was that you're taught like knowledge is power and knowledge. You got to learn as much as you can, right? But rather, the goal of all knowledge is to know you don't know anything. The goal of all knowledge is to get to the point where you realize that you don't know a thing, okay? Because ultimately, when we start talking about Hashem in its essence, the Ein Sof, there's nothing that we as finite beings can really attribute or say about or to Hashem. There's nothing we can say. There's nothing that we can anyway, because as the Rambam Maimonides says, if we knew him, we would be him. The only way to know really Hashem is to be Hashem himself. Right? So there's nothing we can really attribute to the Ein Sof at all, and we're not allowed to also. We're not really allowed to actually talk about the Ein Sof and to refer to Ein Sof. All we know is that the Ein Sof is God's ultimate essence. Coming out of the Ein Sof, the next stage is what we call the Or. I'm sorry, I'm doing this in script. I'll do it in writing it. It's called the Or. The Or Ein Sof. Or Ein Sof. Or Ein Sof means, anybody? Well, you know what Ein Sof is.
The
endless light. And right is no end. And Or means what? Emily, what does Or mean?
Or means light.
Right.
So it's the light without end.
There you go. Right now you got your endless light. The endless light actually is the next step. There's the next step. It's the very first, somewhat of a contraction, is that there's then Or Ein Sof. There is some sort of a light. And that light is an endless light. Again, there's no beginning, there's no end, but there is something called the endless light. And then now, from this endless light, okay, so to speak, now we can start talking about elements of finitude and constriction. But from that endless light down, you've got this process, which is a step-down process continually till you get to us in our planet Earth, in this world of creation, a world of doing. Okay, the world of doing is the way we live, but basically it's a whole step down constantly with more and more constriction each time of that endless light, of that infinite light, until we get to our world. Okay, and remember, we're saying that what is the actual technology that allows this constriction to happen? Remind me, guys, I told you before, let's see who was listening. What is that technology called? I'm asking a question here. I've got a good metronome.
Good.
Yeah.
Simsum.
Right, that's what we call it. But what's the technology that allows it to happen?
It's a step-down converter.
Yeah. What do we call it? The
Mashpia.
The spheroids. Yes, spheroids. Excellent. Spheroids is what allows us. Okay, so that's what allows it to actually happen, actually occur. Okay, fine. So that now you know what symptom is. Symptom is that gradual step down each time. Right, that's what we talk about symptom. Carry on. Let's go. Can we? Who was reading just now? Luffy. Next one. The Kabbalists speak. Luffy, you there?
Yeah.
Kabbalists speak. Yeah.
The Kabbalists speak of creation taking place in 5 general stages. Each stage or universe preceded by an initial symptom contraction of God's light. In this way, God created the universes on a scale of descending magnitude.
Right.
Each symptom capitalizes on a previous degree of concealment brought about and merely serves to further attenuate the light.
Okay, beautiful. Pause there. So you're going to say something?
No, I said, do you want me to carry on?
No, pause there. Okay, fine. So we're talking now about, they have here 5 general stages. I don't know if you, can you hear my kids screaming through the door? This is quite impressive. Can you hear it? Not if you can hear my kids screaming. Because I've got headphones on here and I can even hear them. I bought these, you know that, you saw my Facebook post. I bought these things.
What are those?
Industrial ear protectors.
Beats.
They're not Beats. They're 3M Peltor Optimi 1 for protecting your ears. But I can't wear them over this. It's just a bit. I can actually, yeah, I can. Well, I'm wearing these over my headphones now. I need to do something because it's driving me insane. Okay, fine. I'm wearing headphones over headphones. So every symptom, he's saying, according to Luffy, according to Aryeh Kaplan, right, is each time there are 5 steps. Now, guys, I'm going to be sending this to you as a Google Doc, and I'm going to want you to fill this in as you go along. Okay, guys? There is I have for you a chart. And as we go along, this chart's going to be really super, super useful for you because we'll be filling in each time for example, eventually you would have a chart that looks like this, just to give you, just to whet your appetite to come back next week to make sure you're all here. So you'll be like, oh, that was kind of boring. So eventually I want you all to have a chart that looks like this, yeah? Okay, on the left-hand side, you've got the Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya, the five worlds, Adam, Kadmon, Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya. And then we've got the Hashem's name, how it works out, where in the Neshama it works out, right? In manifestations of spheres, etc., etc. You will all be filling this out yourself as we go along. But for the meantime, I will send you it, and when it looks like this, I'm gonna have to mute everyone because it's a bit loud.
What is that sound?
I don't know. It's crazy. Whatever's doing that, that's nuts. It's driving me insane. It's the sound of my kids screaming, and that's saying something. Okay, now I'll be sending you, every single one of you, this. Okay, you'll get this. Okay, and if you want, you can either save it as a Google Doc or print it off, and you can fill it out as you go along. And like I say, this was so beautiful, the idea of the patterns as we go along. We'll have the patterns, you'll be able to see, you'll be able to chart it for yourself and get an understanding. But the first and most important thing is take a look at the left-hand side. These are the 5 steps down. Okay, you have Adam Kadmon. That is sort of the level of Or Ein Sof, which you mentioned. That's the light that comes out of the Ein Sof. Next, you have Atzilus. Right, this is the next step down from there. Okay, it's the next dimming. Takes you to a world, a universe, which is called Atzilus. The next step down, dimming, brings us to a level called Bria. Next step down, Yetzirah. Next down, Asiya. Asiya, guys, is where we are. This is the world we experience. Right now, we're experiencing life in the world of Asiya. But here's the amazing analogy. This is what I really want to bring down. It doesn't mean that once upon a time there was a world called Asiya, and that once upon a time there was a world. Once upon a time there was a world called Yetzirah. Once upon a time there was a world called Bria. Once upon a time there was a world called Adam Kadmon. These are all happening right now. As I'm speaking to you right now, all the other universes are also existing. It's just that we're just seeing life and experiencing life from the very bottom end of that dim light.
Oh my gosh, I watched a program called the OA. It was saying exactly that.
The what called? What's it called?
The OA.
The OA?
Yeah, it's
rabbi friendly or like?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, well, we'll talk later. Okay, but this is so right. What's happening now in this world? Okay, is affecting. And again, and I know I've said this analogy before. I'll say it again. Right, it's the same thing with this thing right here. It's in my hand. This is an iPhone. Okay, you get an iPhone. Okay, and I think just I'll turn off the stupid background just for this. This is annoying me just for this thing. But like, if you here you have a simple iPhone. You can see me now with my headphones over my headphones just to see what I'm talking about. Just to have a bit of peace and quiet. Okay. Okay, so I've got here an iPhone. Yeah, this is my family mishpucha. This is ala mishpucha in the kotel. Yeah, in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so in my phone, right, I tap with my finger on glass. Okay, so all that's happening in reality in this world of Asiya, so to speak, is that I tap my finger on some glass. Okay, that's all I'm doing. However, when I tap my finger on my glass, I could send £1,000 to someone and make them rich. I could take £1,000 away from someone and make them poor. I can ruin a person's life by typing something which is going to be hurtful and embarrass them publicly or spread a slander that will end their social existence. I can do with my finger on this glass. Hold on a second, but Rabbi Dov, pause. All you're doing is putting your finger on some glass. That's all you're doing, right? You're having a physical finger on a physical pane of glass and pushing glass. But actually, what you're doing is up inside the processor that it's understanding when you block out the light, it's getting the things moving. Then in the world of the internet, then in the world of the servers, and then it has a knock-on effect throughout. So this gives us a slight understanding of what we mean when we say how in the world of Asiya, there is also a world of Yetzirah. When I do something in the world of Asiya, it also affects the world of Yetzirah, Bria, Atzilus, so to speak. Everything gets affected by our actions down this world. That's why I said before, it's a step down mechanism, but it's also a step up mechanism as well. So as we said just now, Luffy wrote, in this way, God created the universe on a scale of descending magnitude. Each symptom capitalized on the previous degree of concealment brought about and merely serves to further attenuate the light. Let's read one last bit together. I'm going to ask Matt Howie, the Heiliger Matt, if you just read this last bit on the bottom here. The creative process. The creative process. It's the third paragraph where it says the universe.
Oh, wait, I'm off pages here.
It's the one that says universes, yeah.
Right. The creative process thus, am I in the right place? Yeah. Thus unfolds from above to below, involving at every stage a greater diminution of the light. This results in the possibility of greater concealment of and separation from the divine at every successive level. This process culminates in the physical universe, the environment which is characterized by the greater concealment of the divine. Finally, in the physical universe, God's presence is all but completely undetectable.
Okay, that's where we're at now. We are in this physical universe, the world of Asiya, right? And in our world of Asiya, that is where God's presence is all but completely undetectable, right? You have to go out and you have to find Hashem in this world. There are many millions of people that would call themselves atheists, that say they don't believe in God at all. Which, again, for those who have a belief in God, would say that's kind of interesting that we're existing in a universe, right? Which is, if you think about the concealment, and in this world, it's so concealed that you may even think that God doesn't even exist. That's how concealed it actually has become and actually is. Okay, let's finish off, Matt, just this last paragraph for today. Go over it. The five universes
are called Adam, Kadmon, primordial man, Atzilut, nearness, Berea, creation, Zitria, formation, and finally Asiya, action or completion. As we shall see, the four lower universes correspond to the four letters of the tetragrammaton. The apex, which initiates the drawing of the first letter, Yod, corresponds to the first and highest universe. We will discuss these five universes in greater detail in the following chapters.
Okay, pause there a second, just to get you going with this, and we'll take it forward. But he's going to show how everything fits into patterns. Everything fits into patterns. Okay, for example, we take a look here. Let's go back to my trusty whiteboard here. Okay, when I got this pen, I was never sure just how useful it would be, but it's super useful. When you write Hashem's name, the tetragrammaton of Yud K Vav K, it starts off what we call the Kutzah Shel Yud. The Kutzah Shel Yud is this kind of top part of the Yud. It's like a crown of the Yud. That's what is called the Kutzah Shel Yud. Then that goes into the Yud itself. Okay, and then so there's a separation there. Then you have a Hey. Then you have a Vav, and then you have a Hey. Okay, this is Hashem's name. The Kutzah Shel Yud is 1, Yud 2, Hey is 3, Vav is 4, and Hey is 5. Okay, I'm just showing you the pattern.
Sorry, Rabbi Dov,
Yeah.
You just cut off there with the bit before the.
I was just saying, I was numbering it through for you. It's Yud, K, Vav, and Hey, right? So basically, I right now we're not going to go through why that is. It will become clear as we get along what a Hey is and what a Vav is, what a Yud is. But what I will show you is, for example, if we now go back to our thing, it all fits in. So, for example, the Adam Kadmon, that's the highest level. That's where everything starts coming out, the beginning of the revelation, so to speak, the beginning of creation. That is going to be the Kotzah Shel Yud. That's the tiny little bit at the top of the Yud. The level of Atzilus is the Yud of Hashem's name. The Bria is the Hey of Hashem, the first Hey of Hashem. The Yetzirah is the Vav, and the Asira is the Hey. Okay, so it's just an example for you how all these things are going to start coming to patterns. But I want you to hold your horses, everybody, because only when we got as we go through this, you start seeing the patterns develop and emerge in a way that really makes proper sense for you. But we've got to build up together. So anyway, so I hope that was a really good first sort of step into this world together. I think I'm really excited to do this. What I really want from you guys is, as much as possible, a commitment to try and come back every week at 11:30. I've recorded this, which means if anyone missed this, and wants to join next week, there's a recording, so they can just watch the recording, and then they can join in from next week as well. And then if you've got any questions, just like, get them ready for next Sunday, or you can write or text me as we go along, and we'll take this forward. The next part, we're going to be talking about the 5 worlds, the 5 universes, and we're going to show how they relate to the 5 levels of the soul. There's step down, there's step up. Okay, it's very exciting things, very exciting times. So I want to thank you, every single one of you. Now, I'm going to just stop this now.